Hello, guys, and welcome back to Exit or Die, the podcast for startup founders building with blood, brains, and no bullshit. My name is Peter, and today we are talking to someone who is literally blowing energy efficiency into Europe's housing stock. Today, my guest is Christian Gruener, co-founder and CEO of VARM, a Berlin-based climate tech startup on a mission to insulate 1 million homes in the next 10 years. Christian did not just write a tech about decarbonization, he got out of the strategy bubble, trained workers, built a real workforce, and scaled a business that touched brick, mortar, and impact. This is a founder story about leaving consulting, slides behind, and actually doing the hard work, with some hard-earned fundraising lessons along the way. Christian, welcome to Exit or Die. So please give us your personal elevator pitch.
Hey, first off, thank you for having us. I think we touched base on what we do at VARM in this podcast for quite a while. Having a really short introduction, what we do about VARM is we're building the European champion for insulation. And that means we build infrastructure for insulation, which is basically a combination of a franchise system where we train workers to build their own franchises up, and then we push out insulation projects with them together.
Perfect. Very exciting. So I would say let's get straight into it, and let's start at the beginning. So you started out in the top tier consulting at Siemens Advanta. Give us your founder moment. When did you say enough slides, enough consulting? I want to build something that touches the real world.
It's a good question. So maybe I start with a very quick introduction and then answer the question. So first off, I studied math and did a bachelor's and master's, and then I went into management consulting, which is correct. So I started my career building slides. At the end of the day, this is helping managers solve their problems in really big organizations. And I had fun with that. I learned a lot, but I realized that it takes a very, very long time until something really moves the needle in these really big corporates. So I needed something more, and this is where I found my first venture. It's not about VARM, this was my first venture. And this was a bootstrap business in the e-commerce space. It was nothing super special, but we built up one of the first longevity brands there was in Europe. And what was really cool about this business opportunity, first, it was bootstrap. Second, it was us making the business really efficient using technology. So we automated every single task there was from start to finish, from the whole supply chain, no customer interaction in the loop. And it was really cool, made us efficient, and we were able to sell that business. And then I realized, hey, this is way more fun than building slides.
Yeah.
I want to build another business. Yeah? So I quit management consulting, and I went out, and then I sat myself down and just thought about what do I actually want to spend my time on. And I super fast realized that I want to work on a problem that really matters. And mattering to me meant working in climate. And I think if you really mean that honesty, then you have to solve a real world problem. It does not help to build the next SaaS software solution that just shows something. Yeah, if you want to have real climate impact, then you have to have some operational component. You have to touch the real world. Otherwise, nothing changes. So this was basically where it started. And then I realized that over 40% of our emissions are coming from buildings, which is absolutely crazy. Buildings are CO2 monsters, and we have to make them energy efficient. Best way to do this is insulation. And then we realized there's no real insulation business yet. So we said, hey, let's build the biggest insulation business there is in Europe. Let's go. And 2.5 years ago, we started together with my amazing co-founder, Sebastian, and we're just still going strong.
Perfect. It's great that you have already the experience to bootstrap a company, right? So from consulting to bootstrap your first venture, I guess that's a real great experience. Can you explain us a little bit more about the impact, and you went from idea to installation crews in the field. So what was the very first move when VARM started?
Yeah, so I think one thing I quickly want to highlight as well is VARM. So my first venture was bootstrapped, then VARM was VC funded. So 2.5 years ago, we basically founded VARM, me and my co-founder Sebastian. We raised around 1 million euros. And then we added up last year a seed round with 5.7 million to nearly raised 6.75, nearly 7 million euros to build the European champion for insulation. To answer your question now, what was the first thing we do after we raised our round was we had to understand what do we really do actually. We had this idea on paper. We did a lot of research and analysis and looked at the industry of insulation businesses and realized it's a super fractional business. It's super small businesses trying to insulate houses, but there's no really scaling business. We had the idea that we were VARM through a franchise system can build a scalable business in insulation. The first moves we did though was trying to close customers, going to houses, to single family homeowners, convincing them that a on paper non-existing company basically with zero experience should do their insulation project.
Great.
So I think the most important thing when we started was to understand what is it we actually do and how do we win customers and how do we sell.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, that's the important thing, to go out and collect feedback from clients, from customers, from people they maybe are interested in your service, etc. Right? Can you explain VARM to us? Like, we are standing in front of a cold, inefficient house in Berlin-Brandenburg. So what exactly do you do, and how is it different from what the market is used to?
Yeah. So from a customer perspective, and this is where it really starts, is a customer wants to have an insulated house. And the idea about VARM is, and we are not there yet, but the end goal of VARM is that we become the provider for insulation throughout Europe. So if you want to insulate the house, we are the provider for it, and we give you the best potential solution there is to insulate your house. When we started VARM, we basically put all the different ways of how to insulate a house next to each other. And what was pretty clear from the start was, hey, we can't do all at once. It doesn't also make sense. So we had to focus. And we drilled down to what we believe, and I still believe, is the best scaling process of how to insulate a house, and that is air gap insulation. This is basically a method to super efficiently insulate a house where you have an air gap inside the wall. So basically you have a build-up of the wall, the outer walls, the facade, and inside these outer walls there's an air gap. Historically, these buildings have been built with this air gap to sustain a lot of rain, so the inner wall is not getting wet. In reality, we realized that 100 years later, we can insulate that air gap without a problem and make that house more energy efficient. And this process is super, super fast. Like still 60-70% of all the projects we do are still air gap insulation projects. And what we do differently is, in a nutshell, from a customer perspective, it's not so much different than your classical craftsman business. At the end of the day, our end product is to insulate the house. I think we do it better than the other businesses, because we are faster. We do it in 30 days. We are way more transparent on what is going to happen, especially in the offer. We tell you already when we start, hey, this is a fixed price offer. This is what you're going to pay. There's no more later fees. And then we also try to have a really, really good customer process from start to finish. So if you look at our Google reviews, we have 5 or 5 stars, 250-ish reviews, which is, I think, unseen. And that's super, super cool.
Great. You have called buildings or houses CO2 monsters. What do most people not understand about the emission problem in the housing sector, or especially at their houses or buildings?
So I think it's the ROI perspective, the return on investment perspective of what you should do for your house. When we started to look at the building sector, we basically set ourselves down, and we also had to understand what you have to do to basically get a house energy efficient. And I had this realization when I set myself down and I looked for the first time at a Sanierungsfahrplan, which is basically a German thing where you an energy consultant comes to your house, and gives you basically a list of what you should do in a specific order of how to get your house energy efficient. And I always felt that if an energy auditor or energy consultant comes to your house and suggests what you should do, a heat pump or heating system would stand on top. This is the first thing you should do. Then the second thing is likely changing the windows or putting up a PV system on your roof, a solar system on your roof. And in reality, though, it's the other way around. In reality, insulation measures are on top. Then there's something like changing your windows, changing your door, and then at the very bottom is basically replacing a heating system and then PV. Why is that? Because an energy consultant does what has the best return on investment for a customer first. And the big misconception in this market is that people think, hey, I should definitely change my heating system. This is the best thing I can do. In reality, though, it's insulate your house. In any other way, it will always have a better return on investment than a heat pump.
I mean, that's, I think, very easy to understand because you collect energy on the roof, right? And on the other side, all the energy goes out on the bad windows, right? Or at the bad doors or the walls, right? So I think that's a very, very good strategy to save energy and to make this more efficient than in the other way, as you mentioned before.
It's a bit like, I think there's a really good metaphor, right? There are many, many, many good metaphors. The one I really like, though, is if you have a 30 or 40-year-old car, there's a lot of things going wrong. You have bad brakes. There's a lot of things you should change. The airbag system is probably not as great. You don't feel as safe anymore. And if you build a heat pump into your house, it's the same as saying, hey, I replaced the engine totally. I built a really new engine of a new car into my shitty old car and think everything is good. But the car is still shit. It maybe runs better because the engine is new, but everything else is still shit. So you should first fix your house or think from an overall strategy what you should do. And this is generally the best thing to do. If you invest into your car, you should probably invest through a whole new system. You should do insulation, you should do a PV system and a heat pump. That's probably the best thing you can do. Obviously, not everyone can afford that. So you should think about what is the most important thing you want to change. And if you can't afford a new car, you probably should change the brakes and not the engine.
Absolutely. You are not just a tech company. You are building infrastructure, training people, creating physical output. How do you manage the complexity of all these points?
That's why we are a tech company, to manage the complexity. I think what is super important to understand, and I want to elaborate this, is we always say we build infrastructure for insulation. And what do we mean by that? This is where it really, really started. So when we started to look at the market, we realized that it is an unbelievably fractional market. There are no big companies existing. So we said we have to build a big company to drive insulation through Europe, not because we think it's good, but because it's mandated, it's needed. We need to fix these houses. So someone needs to build that insulation businesses. But on the other hand, we realized there's a real reason why so many craftsman businesses are so small. It's because locality matters. Locality, being close to your customers, especially in a craftsman business, is super, super important. So instead of saying, hey, we want to build just a really big insulation business, we really trickle down, huge hierarchy, sub-districts, regional districts, and so on, we said, let's build what we call infrastructure. And that is basically local insulation hubs, which are companies that belong to the VARM brand, but are not VARM owned. And how do we get there? How do we build up these companies where people are in the driving seat building a business for themselves, an insulation business, together with our help? And this is what we basically then call the infrastructure. So this starts basically with putting people on our payroll, craftsmen, people who are experienced with just being craftsmen, basically experienced with construction. So we put them on our payroll, we train them to become insulation installers. So basically give them training, and then throughout their day-to-day job, they start using our tech stack as well. And when they've been with us for a while, 6, 7, 8 months, we realize who's really, really good. who can drive their own business. And these ones we pick out and give them the opportunity to open up their own insulation business with our help.
Great.
So they open up a local insulation shop, free with our tech stack, with our approach to them offering this. And we basically give them a business in a box. Yeah. So there's no hassle, there's no fees. They start their own business, and this business starts to thrive on themselves. So with our support.
And that's all in Germany, right? So, or in the DACH region. Only Germany.
No, so far we are only in Germany. Yes, exactly. And maybe to still, because I think I'm not 100% answered this question. How do we manage the complexity? I think it's two levers. First off, it's using technology to make this business more efficient. Currently, with everything that is happening AI, technology is becoming a commodity. And what we build with this infrastructure is really a mode where we apply technology on solving a real problem. And second is we give ownership to these local business owners. We expect that these business owners run their own business. That gives away complexity towards them, because they have to manage their own business. On the other hand, they obviously profit from that. So we have a bit less margin to give them basically complexity, and it's a good trade-off. It's a win-win situation. They win because they generate own wealth for them. On the other hand, we give away complexity.
Wow, awesome. That's great. Let's get to the next point, from the beginning to growth and also to finance and money, right? So VARM has raised over 6 million euros, but this isn't a flashy AI or SaaS product, right? What's it really like pitching capital intensive operational business to tech focused investors? I mean, they are currently only looking to AI, defense tech, and all the stuff. So, can you give us some insights on that?
First off, it's hard, but I think, fundraising is never easy. So there are maybe a few examples where it's easy, but I think first off, it's hard. When we started fundraising in 2023, there was a different environment in VC. And I think until now it changed again. Back in 2021, 2022, there was so much money in the market. Basically, let's say everyone got funding. Revenue was totally irrelevant. There was too much money in the market that flowed into businesses, and it was fine. We raised after that hype. The market really came down and raised after that hype. It was really important that the core of the business, what we do, is first of really revenue generating, and it is at its heart, it's a good business. So the craftsman side of things, which we have inside our business, that is definitely a really good business opportunity per se. And on top comes the tech business, which makes this an attractive investment example. I think what is super, super important is you need something that in the long run can really scale. And for us, this is the franchise-like system, which we implement where we build own jobs that generate their own revenue and are thriving by themselves. So I think pitching is generally hard. You have to have a moat. Any form of moat is super, super important. And also then, Peter, I also think that, I said this before, but I think tech becomes a bit of a commodity right now. You need to have a solid business as foundation, because 95% of the tech can be built in a very, very short time.
Exactly.
You can, obviously you can build a sales force in a couple of months, likely. That does not mean you're suddenly a $1 billion company, because obviously Salesforce has all this go-to-market. They have all these customer interactions, and this is what makes you valuable.
I mean, we can already see currently on the market and also in the VC space. So investors are currently more looking on traction, on revenue, and all the stuff. And as you mentioned before, if you are not a defense tech company with crazy AI stuff, you definitely have to show something. That was different a few years ago, right? So where you said, okay, hey, I have an AI company, I need 50 millions, right? So, and investors say, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. here you have the money and build something cool, right? So that's a big change currently on the market. Maybe you have some advice for our listeners. So what's one piece of advice you would give to a founder who's raising for a non-core category, something that doesn't scream software multiples or something like that?
I think there are two things. First is pick the right investors, and second is have still something that scales. So from my experience is obviously there are some investors that have only appetite for AI. Then you shouldn't come to them and say you are the next deep tech who needs probably 10 years to build something that really generates revenue. So first off, pick the right investors. And there are certain investors who have more of an appetite for potential business models you want to pitch. And that is super important. And then secondly, no matter what you do, you still need a scalable business model. At the end of this, you have to build a really big business. And there needs to be an approach where you get above the, hey, we just are going to scale with people, or we are just going to scale with building more ops or whatever. So you need to have something that, let's say, has the potential to give you a hockey stick. And for us at VARM, these two things were always super important in fundraising. When we started a company, we only spoke to construction tech VCs because we realized super fast they really understand what we want to do, and it's super easy to pitch them. For generalist investors, it was super hard. When we did the seed round, we basically wanted to move out of the niche of just construction tech. And we did so by getting a climate tech investor and then also get an education tech investor. And education tech makes sense because we train all these people to have this opportunity to build up their own business. What we do is democratizing access to opportunity. And obviously, also education funds love that. So you have to pick the right investors, even though it might not be as obvious.
That's interesting with the ad tech investors. So that's my next question. So is there, how do you explain your business to an ad tech investor? I mean, that's two different spaces, two different businesses. So is it hard to explain your business to an ad tech investor?
So generally speaking, is not easy, but the core of what we do is really training people, giving them access to a new opportunity, democratizing this access. And that is what they basically stand for. They want to allow that more people have better access to opportunity, and this is where they invest. I think what was super helped us as well, we at VARM, there's a few businesses who have similar approaches, and they mostly trying to tackle this blue collar shortage topic. In edtech, blue collar shortage is a huge thing. That's probably one of the biggest problems we're facing from an edtech perspective. And obviously, we are super much addressing that. So if you come through that angle, then it becomes obviously easier. And yes, it's always an integral part of our business. I think what does not work is trying to change your story or your business model just because you want to pitch to other investors. That doesn't make sense. I think you need a core business that works.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you can think about basically who might have an appetite for this business. And we realized, obviously, for us, it's super obvious. It's construction. That is quite clear. Then it's climate. And then it's edtech.
Yeah. I also had the feedback from investors that a lot of founders try to change their story only to get funding, right? So that's a great insight from your side. That leads me to the next question about your own scale at VARM, right? So let's give us a few more insights on that. So VARM's model includes launching hyper-local installation hubs and training your own installers, right? So how do you scale a business that requires so much boots on the ground work?
Yeah, I think core to this is that we give them this business in a box solution. Scaling basically means for us generating more of these super local shops. Obviously, we can also, with our core business, we can just hire more people. and then train them and then leave them on our payroll and make this a somewhat scalable business. But it's way harder. Yeah. And it also becomes more and more complex. So what we did instead is we trained them, we enabled them with software, and then we give the best of them this business in a box solution to open up their own insulation shop. And that for us is the foundation for scaling. Yeah. If we in, let's say, 5 to 10 years time have 100 or 150 or 200 of these local insulation shops throughout Europe running insulation businesses for us, then we as VARM, as the core brand, can become a platform business. And this is how we do it.
Yeah, awesome. Now, I mean, you have a great strategy, you have a great product, you have definitely a problem that you can solve. Do you think Europe is ready for this level of operational climate tech?
I think, generally speaking, there is no operational climate tech, or there's no non-operational climate tech. So what I want to say is every real climate tech is somewhat operational. This is, Peter, think about what I said at the very, very beginning. I said, I don't believe we can build a climate tech with just building a SaaS solution. Yeah. I think there are different ways to basically have impact in our real world. And one, you are really a deep tech company where you build some, I don't know, air capturing, CO2 air capturing thingy that probably takes 10 years of development and research to get it done. And I think this is super interesting and it really helps. But this is not where we are. So, and this is a bit hard to fund as well. And then secondly, you have businesses that have climates as part and integrated in their business model. So what we have at VARM from a customer perspective is we are not a climate tech. From a customer perspective, we are an insulation business, a craftsman business that probably gives you the best way to insulate your house throughout Germany as of now.
Yeah.
And they invest, or they don't invest, but they become our customers because they get the best experience for insulating their house with us. When we insulate a house, we help them save cost.
Yeah.
This is their main driver. But because we insulate the house, we save a lot of energy, and this makes us a climate tech. So it's integrated. It's integrated in what we do and in our business model. And that's why I think, yes, Europe is ready for operational climate techs. I think the landscape of climate techs and basically what we've seen throughout the last years is a bit rough because of legislation and everything that happens in politics. But honestly, I think climate is still the biggest problem of our society. And climate is mandated. Maybe there's no noise about climate for the next 3, 4, 5 years, but in 10 years, everyone is going to talk about climate again because it's just going to be a mess.
I think, and a lot of people then will see the ROI, right? So they then see, okay, that already worked by my neighbor, and then why it's not working on my house, right? So I think that's a learning process in the community and in the cities and in the brain of the people, right? So thanks for all these great insights. Now we are coming to our funny part at Exit or Die, so the rapid fire. So it's time for 4 sharp takes with no overthinking. Number 1 would be impact in 1 word.
Real world positive change, 4 words, or change, maybe change.
Okay, cool. Number 2 would be what founders misunderstand about real world businesses.
Profitability is sexy.
Okay, interesting. Number 3 would be your most unsexy win.
Building a thriving insulation business, because insulation is not sexy.
Okay, could be true, and number 4, what gets you out of the bed at 6 a.m.?
Probably not what you want to hear, but only good coffee.
Okay, same here. Great, thank you for that. Chris, you have done the D2C brand thing, the stealth mode, the hardcore physical startup. What's the one thing you have learned about yourself as a founder that consulting never prepared you for?
I think consulting prepares you for a lot, and I would always do it again. But I think real leadership is only learned in the field, and I have still to learn a lot. And I think that's what I want to answer. Yeah, that's it. I think.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely agree on that. If you had to start your company, your startup VARM over again, what would you do differently?
I think I would spend even more time in hiring. Finding the right fit, especially for the team.
Yeah,
that is such a game changer. Yeah, finding an A+ candidate versus an A or B candidate is such a difference maker, and I see this repeatedly. Yeah, and I think we also had some mishires. Yeah, I would spend even more time on really focusing on this.
Yeah, I can agree. Same here. So to work harder on the hiring process, to take maybe more time to speak with people, to learn more about them, I think that's very important. Christian, my last question for this great podcast, and with all the great learnings and insights from your side. If you could write one sentence on every climate tech founder's office wall, something that's actually useful, what would it say?
Just keep pushing. Yeah, it's a bit of an insider in our company as well. So just keep pushing.
Perfect, Chris. I mean, what should I say? Great insights, great story, great journey. I wish you definitely all the best for your next steps.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's it for today's episode, Exit or Die. Again, huge thanks to Christian for reminding us that true impact doesn't start with code. It starts with courage on the ground, in the dirt, and under the insulation foam. To all the other founders, if your mission cannot survive outside the slide deck, Chris, you I think can definitely agree on that. It won't survive in the real world. So
100%. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's it for today's podcast. My name is Peter, and this is Exit or Die. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye.